First things first, I want to apologize for being so late on this. After I made the video talking about the Jacob Markstrom trade earlier, I figured that would be it for today. We usually don't see a ton of trades during the Stanley Cup Finals, so I decided to go to the beach with the boys, and then on the way there, I checked Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, and at first I thought I was being pranked. I thought it was one of those fake insider accounts where they'll have the same profile picture, the same name just with one letter changed, and they'll pay to get the verification check mark. I thought it was one of those fake accounts, but to my surprise, it was not. This trade actually happened. The Los Angeles Kings have sent centerman Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Washington Capitals in a one-for-one deal for goaltender Darcy Kuemper, and there is no salary retention either way. Definitely did not see this one coming. As we all know, Pierre-Luc Dubois had a miserable first season with the Los Angeles Kings. After just 1 year, his contract was already looking like one of the worst in the NHL, so it makes sense that the Kings would want to try and get out from under that contract, but the surprising part is that a team out there was actually willing to take on Pierre-Luc Dubois and the remainder of his contract, the full thing, with no salary retention. On the surface, this looks like a good trade for the Los Angeles Kings, strictly based off of the fact that they were able to get rid of Dubois. Sure, they take on some salary back, as Darcy Kuemper has a cap hit of $5.25 million and is signed at that number for 3 more seasons, but they did need a goalie, so again, referencing Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys, they got 2 birds stoned at once here. They move on from the Dubois contract, and they also get a goaltender, so now they're going to head into next season, it looks like, with a tandem of Dave Riddick and Darcy Kuemper. Now, Darcy Kuemper is coming off of probably the worst season of his career, finished with a save percentage of just .890, ended up losing his starting role to Charlie Lindgren. However, the 3 or 4 seasons prior, Darcy Kuemper had been very solid, so for the LA Kings, I think there's reason to believe Darcy Kuemper can get back to being at least an average or a little bit above average starting goaltender. He's also a guy that the organization is familiar with. He spent 19 games with the Kings back in 2017-18. He went 10-1-3 in those 19 games as well, with a .932 save percentage. Small sample size, obviously, but that stretch with LA was probably one of the best stretches of Darcy Kuemper's entire career, so I'm sure he's excited to go back to LA. So overall, I like this deal for the LA Kings, given the circumstances. If you look at it in the sense that they traded Gabe Vilardi, Alex Iafallo, Kupari in a second, and now all they have to show for that is Darcy Kuemper, then yeah, it obviously doesn't look great. The entire Dubois saga with the Kings was just a disaster for LA as a whole. I'm sure they wish they never traded for him in the first place, but I think the main thing here is that they were able to move on from him after just 1 season. 1 season of Dubois grossly underperforming and just playing uninspiring hockey. You cut your losses and you move on. If you're a Kings fan, I think you got to be pretty pleased with this trade. Shifting focus now and talking a little bit about the deal from the point of view of the Washington Capitals, who acquired Pierre-Luc Dubois. This is the confusing part of the deal, in my opinion. Again, makes sense as to why LA would want to move on. Dubois had a full no-move clause kicking in on July 1st, so if they weren't going to do it now, they were probably never going to get an opportunity to do it. But why would a team like the Washington Capitals be willing to take on a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois after such a rough season in LA, who still has 7 years left on his contract that carries an annual cap hit of $8.5 million? That's the question here. Dubois has developed quite a reputation for himself already at just 25 years old, and it's not a great reputation. He forced his way out of his first 2 teams in the NHL, Columbus and Winnipeg, finally got to go to a team in the LA Kings that he wanted to play for and wanted to sign with long term, got himself a nice big contract extension, and then just seemed to coast through his first season with the Kings. Like I mentioned earlier, just played uninspiring hockey. At one point in the season, he was called out by then head coach Todd McClellan before McClellan was fired. Just not a good look at all for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That all being said, I can see the appeal for Washington. I mean, Dubois was drafted 3rd overall in 2016 for a reason. He's a guy with a ton of skill. He's got good size, plays a premium position at center, and has had 360 plus point seasons in his career before. It's hard to imagine he's going to be as bad as he was this past season with the Kings every year now throughout this contract with Washington. But even if Dubois does get back to being that 60-ish point player, $8.5 million a season is still a lot. It's not like Dubois impacts the game in many other areas. He isn't overly physical despite his size, doesn't play a strong 200-foot game. Based off of the things that Washington Capitals GM Brian McClellan said after acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois, he clearly believes that there's some untapped potential there, and there's still another level Pierre-Luc Dubois can get to that he hasn't shown in his career up until this point. It's a big gamble. I mean, he's 25 years old, which isn't old, but usually by the time you're 25, you know what you have in a player. It's a buy low situation for a player that just this time last year was seen as a guy with a ton of value. Obviously fetched the Winnipeg Jets a pretty big return when he was dealt to the Kings in the first place, but even though the cost of acquisition was relatively cheap for the Capitals, there is a ton of risk involved in this move given Pierre-Luc Dubois' contract. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how this one plays out. As always, I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say, especially if you're a fan of the Kings or the Capitals. Sound off down below in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling. If you guys made it all the way to the end of the video and you enjoy these trade breakdowns, be sure to leave the video a like. That is the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want to stay up to date with all the big trades that happen over the course of the 2024 NHL offseason, then be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.